the child who refused to be silent. Before the fire returned to the sacred grove, before the evil ones knew fear, a child was born under a blood-orange moon in the village of Ubuluku, a land trembling under the weight of darkness. His name was Emeka. That night, no rain fell, yet the sky cracked with thunder. Owls circled thrice and vanished. The village priest, crippled for years, stood and danced like a boy. And when the child cried, the dogs howled as if something ancient had returned. Villagers whispered of omens. Women clutched their babies. The air held a warning. And deep in the shadows, the evil ones, rulers of Ubuluku through fear and sorcery, felt something stir. The balance they had corrupted for generations was shifting. They called themselves the Keepers, but the people, in hushed tones, knew them as Ahondi, the wicked ones. They silenced elders, burned shrines, and drove families into exile. The gods were said to have left Ubuluku. The drums no longer spoke. Yet, in that silence, Emeka was born. His mother, Mama Neka, dreamt of him often before his birth, walking through fire unharmed, leading lions and people with eyes full of hope. His father, Abadike, a seasoned hunter, sensed it too. He stares like he's lived before, Abadike muttered. This child is not ordinary. And he wasn't. By 10, Emeka could hear things others could not. Whispers from trees, messages in wind, drums under the soil. His laughter made goats scatter. His silence made warriors nervous. But what troubled the elders most was his question. Why are our people afraid? It was a question no one wanted to answer. Fear had become tradition. Silence a shield. But Emeka refused to be silent. As his powers grew, so did the danger. The keepers marked him. His family begged him to flee to the city, to escape his fate. And he tried. But destiny cannot be outrun. The ancestors had chosen him. The gods of Ubuluku had not abandoned their people. They had simply been waiting. And now, their answer had arrived, wrapped in the body of a child with fire in his soul. Emeka was born not just to survive. He was born to set Ubuluku free. The village of Ubuluku had not known peace in many seasons. What once was a land of laughter, drumbeats, and moonlit dances had become a place of whispers, shadows, and silence. The elders no longer told stories by the fireside. The shrine stood cold and forgotten. And the sacred talking drums, the heartbeat of the people, had not spoken in years. People vanished in the night. Farms burned with no explanation. Children learned to speak softly, if at all. And fear moved from house to house like a restless spirit. Some said the gods had abandoned them. Others believed the evil ones had chained them in the spirit world. But all agreed on one thing. Ubuluku was no longer the same. So when Mama Neka went into labor, no one celebrated. Even she herself, panting heavily in her clay-walled hut, felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her chest. She had dreamt of this moment for years, and yet, something about the night unsettled her. Outside, the sky bled crimson. The moon hung low and heavy, its color unnatural. Thunder cracked without lightning. Not a single drop of rain fell, yet the air was soaked in tension. Old Madame Ejiro, the village midwife, muttered prayers under her breath as she wiped sweat from Neka's brow. "A god of our mothers," she whispered, "watch over this child. If this is the one they spoke of, let your hand not leave him." Suddenly, a strong gust of wind slammed against the door. The lantern flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, followed by a chorus of howls. Ejiro's hands trembled. The birth was near. With one final cry, Neka pushed, and the child emerged into the world, slick and silent. For a moment, the room went still. The baby did not cry. Ejiro frowned. "Breathe, child. Cry for your mother." But just as she leaned forward, the infant opened his eyes, wide, alert, ancient. He stared at her as though he had known her from another lifetime. And then he let out a powerful wail. Outside, the wind stopped. The howling dogs went quiet. A flock of birds flew from the sacred Irako tree and scattered across the night sky. "He is here," Ejiro whispered, cradling the child. "The child of thunder." Neka wept, not from pain, but from something deeper, a knowing. That same night, across the village, the evil one stirred. In the thick forest near the Forbidden Grove, Chief Okakobayoko, feared ruler of Ubuluku, sat in a circle of flames, surrounded by his dark council. The flames hissed and danced unnaturally. Shadows stretched and twisted on their own. He gazed into a bowl of dark water, swirling with smoke. "What do you see?" he growled. A priestess leaned over the bowl. Her eyes had turned completely white. "A boy is born," she rasped, "with the eyes of a lion and the spirit of fire." Okakobayoko's face tightened. Another fool child? No, my lord. This one carries the mark of the ancestors. He is bound to the old gods. He will not run. Okakobayoko's hands clenched into fists. Then we must act before he walks. The fire roared. As the days passed, whispers of Emeka's birth spread quietly through the village. Some villagers crossed themselves when they saw Neka walking with the child strapped to her back. Others spat on the ground, a traditional gesture to ward off omens. A few dared to smile, hoping the child might bring change. But Emeka was not like other babies. At 3 months, he stared for hours into the flames, smiling as if the fire spoke to him. At 6 months, he pointed toward the ancient shrine no one dared enter, laughing. At 1 year, he fell ill for 3 days, burning with fever, murmuring strange names in his sleep. Names that hadn't been spoken in generations. Old Madame Ajiro shook her head. This one has the ancestors in his bones. Abadike, his father, tried to be strong, but Emeka's behavior disturbed him. One evening, Emeka reached out and touched his forehead, murmuring something in a tongue no living soul knew. Abadike stepped back. He is not just my son. He is something more. Still, Neka clung to faith. She believed her son was born with purpose. She fed him with stories, not the weak stories of fear the village told now, but the old tales. Of warrior kings, of forest goddesses, of men who spoke with thunder and conquered darkness. She told him again and again, "Your name is Emeka. It means great deeds. And great deeds you must do." By the time Emeka turned 5, the village had begun to shift. A quiet stirring spread through the people, a subtle breath of hope. The keepers noticed. So did Okakobayoko. One day, a snake appeared at Neka's doorstep, coiled and hissing. Emeka stared at it, unblinking, and whispered a single word. The snake slithered away. Another night, a crow flew into their hut and refused to leave. Emeka reached out, touched its beak, and it dropped dead. Word reached Okakobayoko. "The child grows," one of his spies said. "And he is not afraid." "Then we must remind him what fear tastes like," the chief replied. But fear was not a language Emeka spoke easily. He asked questions no one else dared ask. Why do we not sing anymore? Why can't we dance near the shrine? Why do we fear men who walk on 2 legs like us? Each time, his father hushed him. His mother pulled him close. And the villagers turned away, too afraid to answer. But Emeka's heart burned brighter with each silence. The spirits that walked with him from birth had not chosen him to be quiet. They had chosen him to bring Ubuluku back from the edge. And already, in secret corners of the village, old men and women began to whisper. Maybe this child is the one. Maybe the gods have returned. Maybe. Ubuluku will rise again. The evil did not begin in a day. It came like slow poison, creeping through the roots of Ubuluku until the land itself began to tremble. The rivers grew quieter. The animals disappeared deeper into the forests. The sacred Irako tree, once a place of worship and thanksgiving, withered at the top as though touched by a hand of death. No one remembered exactly when the keepers rose to power. Some said they were once priests who turned their backs on the gods. Others whispered they were spirits in human form, messengers of darkness who walked among mortals to feed on fear. At the head of them stood Chief Okakobayoko, tall, bald, with skin as dark as midnight and eyes that glowed like coals. He did not need to raise his voice. His presence alone was thunder. When he walked through the village square, even the goats would kneel. His counsel was no less terrifying. There was Dibia Ijendu, the witch doctor who spoke to dead things. Priestess Olama, whose laughter made fire dance in strange places. And Odogwu the masked, whose real face no one had seen in years. Only the skull mask he wore like a second skin. Together, they ruled Ubuluku not with laws but with dread. They cursed those who questioned them, turned families against each other, and silenced the last of the old seers who remembered a time before darkness. The people, broken by years of torment, no longer fought back. They survived. That was all. By the time Emeka turned 8, he understood that his village lived in chains, not physical ones, but chains of fear, silence, and helplessness. He saw how grown men bowed to Chief Okakobayoko without meeting his eyes, how women clutched charms and herbs, hoping to ward off spirits that no longer listened. He saw how the children no longer played near the ancestral stones, and how songs were now sung in whispers, if at all. Even in his own home, fear danced like a ghost. His father, Abadike, once a bold hunter, rarely left their compound. "You must not be seen," he told Emeka. "There are eyes everywhere. Even the trees have ears now." Emeka didn't understand it then, why his family trembled at shadows, why they kept hiding their joy, their voices, their questions. But deep in his heart, something pushed against the silence. He began sneaking into the forest alone, drawn by a force he couldn't explain. There, among ancient trees and forgotten stones, he felt free. The wind spoke to him. The earth hummed beneath his feet. Sometimes he heard drums, faint, distant, like echoes from another time. It was in the forest he first saw the lion. Not a real lion. Not one of flesh and bone. But a vision. The beast stood on a ridge, golden and glowing, its eyes fixed on him. It bowed its head, then vanished like mist. Emeka stood still for hours, his heart pounding. That night he had a dream. The lion returned, but this time it spoke. You are not lost. You are chosen. You are not afraid. You are awake. When the time comes, do not run. Stand. Meanwhile, the keepers grew bolder. Each month, a tribute was demanded: goats, yams, young girls for service, boys for labor. Those who refused faced swift retribution. Their farms would mysteriously catch fire. Their wells would dry up. Or worse, they would simply disappear, their names never spoken again. One day, a young man named Chibiz dared to speak up at the village square. We are not animals, he shouted. Why must we give our daughters away? Is this our destiny? He was dragged away before sunset. His screams echoed through the night like broken drums. His body was never found. From that day on, no one spoke Chibiz's name. No one except Emeka. At age 10, Emeka began to speak out in small ways. To his friends, he whispered, Do you know why we fear them? Because they told us to. To the elders, he asked, Why don't we call on the gods anymore? Did they leave us, or did we leave them? And to his mother, he said, One day, I will stand before Chief Okakobayoko and ask him why. Mama Neka slapped his mouth. Not from anger, but from panic. Don't say such things, she cried, tears in her eyes. Your words can kill you. But Emeka only looked up, calm and certain. Not if they are true. The keepers began to notice him. He was too bold for a boy. Too curious. Too aware. One evening, as he returned from the forest, a masked figure appeared on the path ahead. Odogwu, Emeka whispered. The mask gleamed in the dying light. You should not walk alone, the masked man said. There are things in the forest that eat boys like you. Emeka did not flinch. Then let them try. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Odogwu tilted his head. You are not like the others, he said. That will either save you or destroy you. He vanished into the shadows. At home, Emeka said nothing of the encounter. He only sat beneath the moon, eyes fixed on the horizon. Somewhere out there, the answer to Ubuluku's pain waited. He could feel it. And the drums, they were getting louder. Across the kingdom, strange things began to happen. A carved idol at the forbidden shrine cracked open. Rain returned after 3 dry seasons. A sacred python slithered through the village square and coiled around Emeka's feet, then crawled away unharmed. The elders began to whisper. Maybe the old spirits are returning. Maybe this boy. But Okakobayoko was listening, and he did not like what he heard. In the Council of Fire, he rose. If this boy is who they say he is, he growled, then let us teach him what happens to those who dream of light. The drums of the keepers thundered that night. Something wicked was coming. But so was destiny. The village was no longer safe. Emeka could feel it in the wind, in the way the trees no longer sang when he passed, in the uneasy silence that settled over his home like a heavy blanket. Mama Neka began locking the compound gates before the sun fully set. His father, Abadike, sharpened his machete twice a day, but never spoke of why. The message was clear. The keepers were watching. After Emeka's encounter with the masked enforcer Odogwu, the tension in Ubuluku tightened like a noose. Strangers lingered too long outside their compound. Footsteps echoed at night. Emeka began waking from strange dreams. Visions of fire swallowing the village, of his mother weeping at an empty grave. And then came the crow. It arrived at dawn, perched on the family's rooftop. Jet black, with one white feather along its wing. It cawed only once before flying away. Neka fell to her knees. It is a sign, she whispered. They've marked you. That afternoon, a decision was made. You will go, Abadike said firmly. To the city. To your uncle. Ubuluku is not safe for you now. But my place is here, Emeka argued. The ancestors. The ancestors also gave you sense, his father snapped. You will live to fight another day. The pain in his father's voice silenced him. Emeka looked to his mother, hoping she might resist. But Neka only pulled him close, her voice trembling. You are our only son. If you die here, Ubuluku dies too." By nightfall, Emeka stood at the edge of the forest with a satchel slung over his shoulder. Inside were roasted yams, dried meat, a palm leaf charm, and a folded note from his mother tied with red thread. "Do not open it," she had said. "Not until your spirit is breaking." The moon was low. The wind carried the scent of ash. In the distance, a lone drumbeat echoed not from celebration but warning. His parents said no goodbyes. No farewell ritual. Not even a prayer. Only Obadiah's whispered words as he turned to leave. "Come back, but not until you are ready." And then Emeka was alone. The journey to the city took 2 days. He traveled mostly by foot, passing through abandoned farmlands, old trade paths, and silent villages emptied by fear. The deeper he moved away from Ubuluku, the more color returned to the world. Birds sang. Children played by rivers. Traders shouted in open markets. The city was alive in a way Ubuluku hadn't been for years. And yet, Emeka felt no peace. His heart was a drum that refused to stop beating. His uncle's home stood on the outskirts of the city, a wide compound with a tin roof and tall fences. Uncle Udena was a respected herbalist, known for healing the sick and warding off spiritual attacks. He welcomed Emeka with open arms, but even he noticed something was different about the boy. "You look like someone carrying a bag of secrets," he said one evening. Emeka only smiled. "I'm just tired." But at night, the visions continued. He saw Ubuluku in flames. He saw Jinika, though he hadn't met her yet, standing on a stone, calling his name. He saw the lion again, roaring at the foot of a mountain wrapped in mist. And he heard the drums. Louder. Closer. He could not rest. City life moved fast. Emeka learned to speak boldly, to cross busy streets, to read the language of the market. He helped his uncle mix herbs and prepare treatments for customers. In time, he began attracting clients of his own. They said his hands were warm, that his presence brought clarity, that his eyes seemed to see deeper than most. "Your chi is strong," an old blind man told him once. "You walk with many spirits." But Emeka only nodded, his thoughts always circling home. He began keeping a journal. In it he wrote dreams, names, symbols, questions, clues. It was not the city that grew in him, it was Ubuluku, refusing to die. One morning, while fetching herbs near the market square, Emeka felt it, a sudden coldness in his chest. He dropped the basket. The sky darkened, though no clouds were visible. The wind went still. And then he heard the whisper, "Return." He spun around. No one was there. He blinked, and the vision came. Ubuluku's sacred tree burning, the ground split open, villagers kneeling. In the center of it all, Chief Okokobayoko stood laughing, and Emeka's father lay face down in the dirt. When he came to, a crowd had gathered. His hands trembled. He ran home. That night, he opened the red-threaded note. Inside, in his mother's handwriting, were the words, "You are not of the city. You are not meant to hide. When the gods knock, do not delay. When the wind calls your name, follow it. Ubuluku needs you." A tear slid down his cheek. The next morning, he told his uncle, "I must go back." Udena said nothing for a long time. Then, nodding slowly, he handed Emeka a wooden staff. It had once belonged to his grandfather, a man known as Afalai the Flame Caller, the last spirit talker of their bloodline. "You're not just going back to fight men," Udena said. "You're going to fight fear itself." Emeka took the staff. "I was born ready." Far away, deep within Ubuluku, Chief Okokobayoko sat before his fire once more. He smiled faintly. "The boy returns." And the shadows answered, "Let him come." Emeka returned to Ubuluku on the eve of his 20th birthday. But this was not the same boy who had left years earlier, clutching a palm leaf charm and a satchel of roasted yam. The city had sharpened him. The silence of exile had deepened him. And the ancestors had not been idle. They had worked on him in dreams. They had stretched his spirit in secret places. They had whispered things that only the wind understood. When he stepped past the boundary stone that marked Ubuluku's edge, the trees shuddered. Birds scattered. And the soil, dry and cracked for years, grew strangely warm beneath his feet. Even the shadows seemed to lean away. He walked barefoot, carrying nothing but the wooden staff his uncle gave him, the staff of Afalai the Flame Caller. His eyes, once curious, now burned with quiet purpose. His shoulders carried no fear. He had not returned to visit. He had come to begin. The village had changed, and yet it hadn't. Huts sagged from neglect. The market was smaller. The laughter that once echoed from the village square was gone. But what struck Emeka most was the people themselves. Their faces had aged from the inside out. Men walked hunched, even when their backs were straight. Mothers cradled children, as though shielding them from air itself. And everyone avoided the shrine. The once sacred place had been claimed by weeds and silence. He arrived unannounced. His mother screamed when she saw him, then cried, burying her face into his chest. "You're taller," she murmured. "You smell like fire and salt." His father said nothing. He only looked into Emeka's eyes and nodded slowly. "You are no longer my son. You are something more." But not everyone welcomed his return. That very night, a cow was found dead in the square, its neck twisted unnaturally, its eyes wide open. It lay at the foot of the Irako tree, beneath which the village once held its moon festivals. The villagers took it as a warning. "The boy has brought trouble," some muttered. "The evil ones will not allow him to walk freely." But Emeka did walk freely and fearlessly. He visited the forest and knelt before the ruined altar. He placed his palm on the earth and whispered, "I am here." The wind carried the message. That night, he dreamt of Jinika, a face he had never seen, but somehow remembered. Brown eyes like calm rivers, braided hair crowned with cowries. She stood on sacred ground, holding a clay pot, watching him. "You came late," she said. Emeka reached for her, but she turned into dust. He woke sweating. The next day, he went to the market. Whispers followed him like shadows. "That's the one. They say he walks with lions." His father's goats stopped dying after he came back. By midday, Jinika herself found him. She was not what he expected. She was more bold, unapologetic, dressed simply but walked like a priestess. She stepped into his path and said, "You don't belong in the market. You belong at the shrine." Emeka studied her. "Who are you?" Someone the gods also refused to leave alone. She turned and walked away. He followed. Together, they climbed the hill behind the village, to a clearing where a fallen stone statue of Udo, the god of peace, lay in ruins. "This is where they silenced the last oracle," she said. "My grandmother." Emeka lowered his gaze. "Why show me this?" "Because," Jinika said, "you're going to finish what she started." And then, without another word, she reached into her wrapper and handed him a broken piece of the oracle's mirror. Obsidian, cold and humming with unseen energy. "When the time comes," she said, "it will show you who your real enemy is." That night, Emeka's powers awakened fully. It began with a ringing in his ears. Then fire. Not literal flame, but heat in his veins, a roaring power that surged from his belly to his fingertips. His eyes glowed faintly under the moonlight. His breath slowed. Time itself seemed to bend around him. He heard every insect's cry, every heartbeat in the village. He saw beyond the walls, into memories, into wounds left on the land, into the hearts of those who had betrayed their people. He fell into a trance. In it, he stood on the village square, surrounded by spirits, warriors, mothers, drummers, and kings. All silent, all watching. An ancient voice said, "You are no longer hidden. You are no longer learning. You are now becoming." When he woke, his father sat beside him with a calabash of water. Abadike said nothing, but Emeka understood. This was the moment the boy became the fire. News spread. The boy healed a dying child with his touch. He called rain by humming into the wind. He speaks to the trees. People began visiting. Quietly at first, then boldly. Even the elders who once called him a threat now brought kola and questions. The only ones who did not approach were the keepers. But their silence was not peace. It was preparation. In the forest, Chief Okakobayoko stared into a cracked mirror. "The boy is awake," he muttered. Priestess Alama hissed. "Then it is time to send the first warning." The fire cracked, and a dark bird burst from the flames. It flew toward the village with a message only the brave would survive. By the third week of Emeka's return, Ubuluku had begun to breathe again. It was subtle at first. Children played a little farther from home. Old men returned to the ancestral stools at twilight. The sacred flute was heard again, played quietly from behind the palm wine seller's hut. The shrine, once forgotten, now had a fresh trail leading to it, footprints pressed into the soft earth, bold, unashamed. People no longer whispered Emeka's name with fear. They began to say it with hope. But where light rises, shadows tremble. The keepers knew the tide was changing. Their spies brought news daily. Emeka had spoken to the hunters and the herbalists. He had blessed the yams at the market. He had been seen near the sacred well, the one sealed since the oracle's death. And most troubling of all, he was always with Jinika. One night, under the full moon, Jinika led Emeka into the depths of the forest. "This is the place I was taken to as a child," she said, guiding him through the thick brush. "After they killed my grandmother, the forest spirits spared me. They said I had work to do, that a warrior would return." Emeka followed silently, heart steady, staff in hand. They reached a clearing lit by glowing fireflies. In the center stood a mound of stones marked with red earth symbols. Jinika knelt before it and placed the broken shard of the oracle's mirror into the dirt. "My grandmother's soul rests here," she said. "And tonight she will speak to you." Emeka stepped forward and placed his palm on the mound. Immediately, a wave of warmth shot through his spine. The trees grew still. The stars blinked. He closed his eyes. In the silence, a voice emerged, old, firm female. "You are not alone, Emeka. Your fight is not only with men, but with forgotten truths. The peace they buried still breathes beneath this land. Do not fear the darkness. Fear only the day you stop walking toward the fire." When he opened his eyes, Jinika was watching him. "You heard her," she said. Emeka nodded. "The time has come," he replied. The next day, he did what had not been done in 10 years. He lit the ancestral fire in the village square. It was a sacred act, one that only elders or chosen ones were allowed to perform. No one had dared to do it since the keepers outlawed the old rituals. Villagers gathered, nervous. Some tried to stop him. "Do you want them to strike us all down?" one woman whispered. Emeka said nothing. He struck the fire. The flames burst into life, high, golden, defiant. A hush fell. Then an old man began to clap. Another followed. Soon, the whole square trembled with applause, weeping and chanting. For the first time in years, Ubuluku sang. But the keepers, they heard it too. At midnight, the first attack came. A farmer's hut burned. His livestock found mutilated. On the door, a symbol was carved in blood. The Eye of Silence, the mark of Okakobayoko's wrath. People panicked. But Emeka did not waver. "They want us to return to fear," he said. "They want us to run." He turned to the villagers gathered at the square. "Are we not tired of running?" He stood barefoot on the sacred stone, the flames still rising behind him. "They've stolen our gods, our voices, our children. They've mocked our ancestors. But this land remembers who we are. I remember. And so should you." A young man stepped forward. "I will stand with you." Then another. And another. Jinika stood beside him, eyes blazing. "The gods are watching, and they will not forget those who rise." That night, Emeka called a secret gathering. Elders, hunters, women, herbalists, even old warriors once loyal to the keepers came. Around the ancestral fire, Emeka laid down a plan. "We don't need blood to fight," he said. "We need memory." He assigned each person a role. Enzadindu, the last elder with knowledge of sacred chants, would teach the children the forbidden songs. Jinika would guide the women to restore the shrine with fresh offerings. The hunters would map the old tunnels beneath the village, used in the days before the keepers. "We are not just rising," Emeka said. "We are returning." But the keepers struck again. They captured a girl, 10 years old, the daughter of a herbalist who had spoken in Emeka's gathering. She was dragged to the village square at dawn. Priestess Alama stood before the crowd. "You dare follow a boy," she sneered. "Then let his courage save this child." She raised a curved blade. Just as she moved to strike, a wind rose from nowhere, fierce and sharp. A voice boomed through the air. "Let her go." Emeka stepped into the square, his staff glowing faintly. Alama's hand froze midair. Her blade turned red-hot, forcing her to drop it with a cry. Smoke rose from the ground around her feet. She stumbled back, eyes wide. Emeka walked to the girl and untied her calmly. Then, turning to the villagers, he said, "You do not have to fight with fire, but you must stop bowing to shadows." The villagers fell to their knees. Not in fear, but in reverence. That night, deep in his cave temple, Chief Okakobayoko smashed a black clay bowl on the floor. "He is no longer just a boy," he growled. "He is becoming a storm." The council of keepers gathered in silence. Then Odogwu the masked whispered, "Then let us bring him war." The storm began at twilight. Long fingers of cloud stretched across the Ubuluku sky, casting the land in a blood-orange glow. The wind carried no breeze, only stillness, like a held breath before a scream. Everyone knew it had begun. The keepers no longer struck in secret. They had grown desperate. The people no longer trembled as they once did. Old songs had returned. Drums beat again from hidden places. Children named their pets Emeka. And the fire had been lit in the village square twice without retaliation. Chief Okakobayoko could not allow a third. That night, the keepers came down from the forest, cloaked in smoke, chanting forbidden tongues, masks covering what little humanity remained on their faces. With them came creatures the villagers had only heard of in folk tales. Crawling things of no known form, spirits that mimicked crying infants, and the dark mist a swirling, sickening fog that made warriors drop their weapons and scream. They moved toward the square like a plague. But this time, Ubuluku was waiting. Emeka stood barefoot beneath the sacred Irako tree, staff in one hand, a carved gourd of ancestral water in the other. Around him were the awakened villagers who had taken oaths to defend the land. Warriors, women, hunters, seers, even children carried stones etched with the old signs. Jinika stood beside Emeka, draped in white, face marked with river clay. In her hand she held the shard of her grandmother's oracle mirror. It pulsed with light, small but fierce. "They're close," she whispered. "I know," Emeka said calmly. "Let them come." The first wave came with howls. Masked keepers charged with fire-breathing sticks and rusted blades. But as they stepped into the square, their feet burned. The land beneath them had been blessed with sacred ash from the ancestral shrine. They screamed, their weapons turning hot in their hands. Emeka raised his staff. It struck the earth once, a deep, thunderous thud, and the wind shifted. The sacred tree behind him rustled though no wind blew. The drums hidden in the forest responded with rhythm. And then came the chant. From the old women. From the children. From the broken men who had found their voices again. Onmu adigin joma oburu nai bairi eneziakwu. Death is not terrible, if one has lived in truth. It was no longer fear in the air. It was defiance. Chief Okakobayoko appeared, cloaked in a robe of skulls. His eyes burned like coal pits. "Enough," he roared. "You break laws you do not understand." Emeka stepped forward. "Then teach me," he said. "Teach me why we must kneel to shadows." The two locked eyes. Then the sky split open. From above came the black mist, thick, oily, alive. It fell like a wave, choking the square in darkness. People screamed, covering their faces. Even warriors dropped to their knees, gasping. Emeka stumbled, vision blurring. And then he heard the lion's roar. Not from outside. From within. He gripped his staff. It glowed red-hot. He raised it and slammed it into the earth once more. Boom. A ring of light erupted around him, cutting through the mist. His voice, steady and clear, rose in the ancient tongue of the flame-callers. "Let light return. Let breath be free. Let the gods speak again." The mist recoiled. The creatures hissed. The keepers stumbled. Okakobayoko snarled, raising both hands. The ground cracked beneath him. Snakes poured forth. But Jinika stepped forward, lifting the mirror shard. She shouted a name, not Emeka's, but an ancient one. "Nwaninso, come forth." A blinding figure appeared behind her. The spirit of the oracle herself, cloaked in wind, her voice rising like a war song. The snakes turned to smoke. The mist scattered, and Chief Okakobayoko staggered. Emeka walked toward him. Step by step. He lifted his staff and pointed it at the trembling chief. "You were never a god," he said. "Just a man who fed on silence." Okakobayoko reached into his robe, pulled a dagger carved from bone, and lunged. Emeka turned. The blade missed. The staff struck. Crack! A flash of light. Okakobayoko flew backward and struck the sacred stone. He gasped. Then he crumbled into ash. A silence fell. Then a voice rose, an elder's voice. "It is done." And the drums began. The keepers, seeing their leader fall, dropped their weapons. Some fled. Others knelt, tearing off their masks. One began to weep openly. The villagers roared in triumph, hugging, laughing, crying. The battle of shadows was over. Ubuluku had won. Not just with power, but with memory, unity, and spirit. Later that night, the square glowed with sacred fire. Children danced. Jinika's voice led the song of renewal. Emeka stood under the stars, eyes full of tears. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just come back," he said. "You brought all of us back." But deep in the forest, in a cave no man dared enter, a cold eye opened. The true war, it seemed, had only just begun. Peace returned to Ubuluku, but only on the surface. The air was lighter. The market buzzed. Children now ran freely through the shrine path. Farmers returned to their abandoned lands, and the sacred songs rang boldly again beneath the Irako tree. Emeka and Jinika had become symbols of freedom. The people called them Nwa Ogbanj Enki Chukwu, the child the gods returned. But Emeka knew the land still trembled. Some nights he awoke in sweat, the echo of unseen drums pounding behind his eyes. Other nights, the stars blinked strangely, as though watching him too closely. One dawn, the sacred flame in the village square died on its own. No wind, no rain. That same day, a palm tree bled red sap. The elders called a meeting. Under the canopy of the Irako, with all clans present, Emeka stood before them and spoke. "We did not kill fear," he said. "We only chased its shadow." The villagers murmured. Elder Adindu cleared his throat. "What do you mean, son of Abadike?" Emeka turned toward the sacred grove. Okakobayoko was not the source. He was a vessel. The real war lies beneath, in the spirit realm. The old women gasped. Someone spat on the earth. Even brave men shifted uncomfortably. No one dared speak of that realm, where ancestors sleep and demons wake. But Jinika stepped beside Emeka and raised her chin. "My grandmother warned this would come. When lies rule a land too long, they bury themselves into its spirit. They become part of the ground, the air, the blood." She pointed toward the east. "There is still darkness in this land, and it is waiting." That night, the fire at the shrine turned green, and a voice echoed from the trees. "You have touched what you do not understand. You have shaken the balance. Now come." Emeka rose from sleep. It was time. He prepared in silence. Draped in a white cloth, ash marked across his chest, and the staff of Ophalai in hand, Emeka set out for the Hill of Echoes, the gateway between the living and the spirit world. Jinika followed, carrying a calabash filled with water from the 3 sacred rivers. She had tied her grandmother's mirror shard to her neck. At the edge of the hill, they were met by 3 animals, a lion, a black eagle, and a serpent. They circled the pair, then bowed. Jinika gasped. "The guardians of the realms, they accept you." Emeka closed his eyes and stepped through the veil. The spirit realm was unlike anything he had imagined. Colors shimmered and collapsed into shadows. Voices sang from inside rocks. Trees wept fireflies. He stood on no solid ground, yet never fell. Time did not flow, it pulsed. There he saw truths. He saw the day the gods turned away from Ubuluku, when the villagers began sacrificing truth for fear. He saw Okakobayoko as a boy, full of pain, corrupted by whispers in the wind. He saw a dark spirit, Agwalisa, the ancient hunger, a being of void that had fed for centuries on grief, silence, and betrayal. "You fight men," it hissed from the mist. "But I have feasted on your people for generations." Agwalisa's form twisted. It wore the faces of Emeka's fallen friends, even of himself. "You cannot fight what lives inside them." But Emeka stood firm. "I am not here to fight," he said. "I'm here to cleanse." He struck the ground with his staff. Light erupted, but the spirit laughed. "You need more than light." Suddenly, the ground split. Emeka and Jinika were flung apart. She landed near a flaming mirror. Inside it, she saw her grandmother, chained and weeping. "Free me," the spirit said, "or the girl will never become whole." Jinika reached forward, and the mirror cracked, then shattered. The chains broke. The oracle's spirit rose behind her, taller than the trees, her voice now mighty. "The line is healed." Elsewhere, Emeka was surrounded by shadow warriors, beings made from the fears of his childhood. The night he first saw a corpse, the time he feared he'd never return, the voice of doubt whispering, "You are just a boy." He fought without swinging. He remembered. He named every fear, one by one, and as he named them, they disappeared. In the center of the spirit realm stood Agwalisa, now desperate, shrinking, roaring in fury. "You cannot end me," it cried. "I am their wounds." "No," Emeka said calmly. "You are only their forgetting." He raised his staff, which now glowed golden, and struck the air. A wave of remembrance spread, stories, names, ancestors, children, chants, filling the realm with thunderous, vibrant life. Agwalisa screamed and shattered. The spirit realm calmed. The voices of the ancestors sang softly. A new path opened in the mist, lined with fireflies crowned in green light. The lion, eagle, and serpent bowed once more. Emeka and Jinika stepped through it, hand in hand. Back in Ubuluku, the wind shifted. The earth sighed, and for the first time in generations, the land felt light. The villagers woke to find the shrine stone glowing. Their wounds had not vanished, but they had stopped bleeding. And above the sacred tree, a rainbow hung, though no rain had fallen. The sun rose slowly that morning, as if the heavens themselves wanted to witness the rebirth of Ubuluku. A strange quietness settled over the village, not of fear, but of awe. Even the birds did not sing at first. The air carried the scent of renewal, wet earth, fresh leaves, and burning incense from the sacred grove. The elders said it was the first true peace the land had felt in over 4 generations. Emeka and Jinika returned from the spirit realm transformed. Their feet touched the earth gently, but the wind swirled around them with reverence. Emeka's eyes glowed faintly, like embers of an eternal flame. Jinika's hair had turned a deeper black, kissed with streaks of white, a mark of the oracle's blood restored in her. The villagers gathered as they emerged near the sacred Irako tree. Old men wept openly. Women knelt. Children crawled forward, not out of fear, but as if drawn by the gravity of love. Elder Adindu, his cane shaking in his hands, approached and placed kola nuts at Emeka's feet. "We feared you were just a boy," he said. "But you were the god's thunder hidden in flesh." Emeka knelt and raised the elder to his feet. "I am your son," he said softly, "and Ubuluku is our mother." That same day, the last of the keeper temples were torn down. The people did not destroy them out of rage. They danced around them, sang old victory songs, and buried the rubble with joy, not vengeance. Each chant was an offering to those who died without justice. Each drumbeat was for the lost children, the missing fathers, the silenced mothers. And on that day, for the first time in decades, no one bowed in fear. The next 7 days were named the days of cleansing. Sacred trees were replanted where curses once stood. Old altars were dusted and restored. A long-forgotten river path was cleared by the youth, who said they dreamed of a woman in white guiding them through it. And the shrine of the oracle, Jinika's lineage, was rebuilt with stone and spirit, wood and wisdom. Jinika was named Voice of the Ancestors. Emeka, humbly, refused any title. "I have done what the land asked of me," he said. "Now let the land speak for itself." But the people insisted. On the 8th day, they crowned him not as king, but as Akpalandu, the firstborn of life, a title reserved for the one who awakens a sleeping land. Years passed, but the tale of Ubuluku never dimmed. New children were born who never knew the terror of Okakobayoko's reign. Their lullabies were songs of Emeka's courage and Jinika's vision. Markets returned with life. Crops flourished again. The sacred Irako tree, once dying, bloomed with 3 bright fruits that never fell, said to be the spirits of the 3 guardians, the lion, the eagle, and the serpent. And every year, on the day the mist was broken, the village lit a fire at the square and chanted, "When truth walks, shadows flee. When the gods return, fear dies. Ubuluku shall never kneel again." In his later years, Emeka built a school beneath the very hill where he had entered the spirit realm. There, he taught not only herbs and history, but the importance of remembering. "Forgetfulness," he said, "is the first wound of a dying people." Jinika, ever radiant, trained the next generation of spirit listeners. Her voice, like her grandmother's, was said to cause trees to bloom in dry season and silence even the fiercest storm. Together, they raised 3 children. Each was marked, not with power, but with purpose. When Emeka finally passed, old and smiling beneath the stars, the sacred tree wept with red sap, not blood but wine sweet. The sky stayed lit the entire night. And for the first time since the beginning of the village, a lion's roar was heard from the eastern mountain. The villagers didn't fear it. They whispered, "He is watching us still." And so the tale ends, not with death but with renewal. Ubuluku did not just survive. It was reborn, because one boy refused to forget, because one girl refused to stay silent, because when the ancestors call and the chosen rise, even a kingdom buried in darkness can become a garden again. Moral lesson from the Ubuluku liberation tale. The Ubuluku liberation tale teaches that true liberation begins not with the sword, but with memory, courage, and unity. Emeka's journey reminds us that every generation must confront the darkness of its time, not only through physical strength, but through spiritual awareness and moral clarity. At its heart, the story reveals that fear is most dangerous when it silences a people. The keepers thrived not only through violence, but by erasing truth, severing ancestral ties, and feeding on silence. It was not until Emeka, a young man guided by visions, courage, and destiny, chose to remember and stand firm that Ubuluku began to heal. The tale also shows the importance of listening to one's roots. Emeka tried to flee to the city, But destiny pulled him back because no true healing ever comes from abandoning where one comes from. It takes confronting the pain, honoring the ancestors, and speaking the truth boldly, even when it is dangerous, to rebuild a broken land. Through Jinika's wisdom and the guidance of the oracle, we learn that women are keepers of spiritual strength and legacy. Change is never the work of one, but of many hands, brave hearts, and remembered stories. Ultimately, the tale teaches that while evil may hide in men, it is often rooted in systems, silence, and forgetting. But so too is healing, in memory, truth, and unity. When the people of Ubuluku chose to rise together, fear was defeated. The gods returned, and peace was no longer a myth but a living reality. A people who remember who they are can never be enslaved. True freedom comes when we reclaim our voice, honor our past, and rise together with courage and truth. If you enjoy our videos, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on our upcoming stories. Thank you.